You are not stuck because you are lazy. You are stuck because you are fighting the wrong battle. You are trying to force yourself to start when starting is not the problem. The problem is that you have never learned how to build momentum. You have never installed a momentum engine in your brain, so you start and stop. You push and collapse. You burn out and restart. And you think the problem is your willpower. It is not. The problem is physics. You are trying to move a stationary object with sheer force instead of building a system that keeps the object in motion. This audiobook is about installing that system, the momentum engine. Once it is running, you will not need to force yourself to start. Starting will be automatic. You will not need to motivate yourself to continue. Continuing will be natural. You will become the kind of person who moves forward every single day without looking back, not because you are special. Because you finally understand how momentum works. Introduction: the stuck state. You are stuck not because you lack talent, not because you lack intelligence, not because you lack opportunity. You are stuck because you have been trying to move forward using force instead of momentum. Look at your pattern. You get inspired. You decide to change. You start something new. You push hard for a few days or a few weeks, then the energy runs out, the resistance builds, the friction becomes too much. You stop, you rest, you feel guilty. You wait for the inspiration to return. Eventually it does, and the cycle repeats. Start, stop, over and over and over again. This pattern has cost you years of progress. It has cost you the compound effect of consistent action. It has cost you the identity of someone who follows through. It has cost you the respect you would have earned if you had simply kept moving. Most people think the problem is their lack of discipline. They think they need more willpower, more motivation, more force, so they read books about habits. They watch videos about morning routines. They try to psyche themselves up, and none of it works for long because they are addressing the symptom, not the cause. The cause is that you have never built a momentum engine. You have never installed the system that makes forward motion automatic. You are trying to push a boulder up a hill every single day instead of building a system that rolls the boulder downhill while you walk beside it. This audiobook is about building that system. It is about understanding the physics of momentum and applying those principles to your own behavior. It is about becoming the kind of person who does not need to force themselves to start. Starting is automatic. It is about becoming the kind of person who does not need to motivate themselves to continue. Continuing is natural. This is not theory, this is mechanics, the mechanics of motion, and once you understand them, you will never feel stuck again. Chapter 1: The Physics of Personal Momentum. Momentum is not a metaphor, it is a physical law. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest unless acted upon by an external force. Your behavior follows the same law. When you are in motion taking action every day, you tend to stay in motion. When you are at rest not taking action, you tend to stay at rest. And the force required to move from rest to motion is exponentially greater than the force required to maintain motion. This is why starting feels so hard. Starting is the act of moving from rest to motion. It requires enormous force. It requires willpower. It requires motivation. It feels like pushing a boulder. But once the boulder is rolling, maintaining its motion requires far less force. In fact, if you build the system correctly, the boulder can start pulling you forward. The problem is that most people never get to the maintenance phase. They spend all their energy on the start. They push the boulder for 3 days. They exhaust themselves. The boulder stops. They rest. Then they have to push it again from a dead stop. This is the start-stop cycle, and it is the most inefficient way to move forward possible. The momentum engine is built on 3 principles from physics. The first principle is inertia. Inertia is the resistance to change. Your brain has inertia. Your habits have inertia. Your identity has inertia. You must overcome inertia to start moving. But once you overcome it, inertia works in your favor. A body in motion stays in motion. The second principle is friction. Friction is what slows things down. In your life, friction comes from decision fatigue, from unclear priorities, from environmental distractions, from emotional resistance. The momentum engine is designed to reduce friction to the absolute minimum so that once you start moving, nothing can slow you down. The third principle is compounding. Small, consistent actions compound into massive results over time. A single push does nothing. 1,000 pushes over 1,000 days creates an unstoppable force. The momentum engine is built on the mathematics of compounding, not the force of individual efforts. Most people try to succeed through heroic individual efforts. They push the boulder as hard as they can for as long as they can, and then they collapse. The momentum engine succeeds through consistent small pushes that never stop. The boulder moves slowly at first, almost imperceptibly, but it never stops, and over time the distance it travels becomes extraordinary. This is the difference between force and momentum. Force is what you apply in a moment. Momentum is what you build over time. Force requires willpower. Momentum requires systems. Force burns you out, momentum builds you up. You are not failing because you are not forcing hard enough. You are failing because you are not building momentum. Chapter 2: The Start-Stop Cycle. The start-stop cycle is the enemy of momentum. It is the pattern that keeps you stuck, and it is the pattern you must destroy. The start-stop cycle works like this. You decide to change, you feel inspired, you create a plan, you start executing the plan with enthusiasm, you push hard, you see some initial progress, then the initial enthusiasm fades, the push required to keep going feels harder, the friction increases, you miss a day, you feel guilty, you push harder the next day but it feels forced, you miss another day, the guilt increases, you start making excuses. You tell yourself you need a break, you stop, the momentum dies, you wait for the inspiration to return, eventually it does, and the cycle starts again. This cycle is not a failure of willpower, it is a failure of physics. You are trying to push a boulder up a hill, every push is fighting gravity, every push is fighting inertia, every push is fighting friction. Of course you get tired, of course you stop, of course the boulder rolls back down. The momentum engine does not fight gravity, it uses gravity. It does not fight inertia, it overcomes it once and then lets inertia work in its favor. It does not fight friction, it eliminates friction. How do you eliminate friction? By reducing the number of decisions you have to make, by making the environment support the action rather than resisting it, by making the action so small that it requires almost no force to start, by making the identity shift so that the action feels like who you are rather than something you have to force yourself to do. The start-stop cycle happens because you are making every decision every day. Should I work on this today? Should I do it now or later? Should I do it for 1 hour or 2 hours? Should I do it perfectly or is good enough okay? Every one of these decisions is a point of friction. Every one creates an opportunity for the cycle to break. The momentum engine eliminates these decisions. It makes the decision once. It automates the execution. It removes choice from the equation. You do not decide to work on your goal today. You decided yesterday that you work on it every day at 7 a.m. The decision is already made. You just execute. This is the key: make the decision once, execute infinitely. Chapter 3: The Daily Ignition Sequence. The daily ignition sequence is the routine that starts your momentum engine every single day. It is how you overcome inertia without relying on willpower. It is how you ensure that the boulder starts rolling every morning without having to push it from a dead stop. The ignition sequence has 3 parts: the trigger, the action, and the reward. The trigger is a cue that tells your brain it is time to start. The trigger must be consistent and automatic. It cannot be a decision. It must be something that happens to you every day regardless of how you feel. The most powerful trigger is time. 7 a.m. is the trigger, not when I feel like it, not after I check my email. 7 a.m. The clock hits 7 a.m. and the ignition sequence begins. The action is what you do immediately after the trigger. The action must be small, ridiculously small, so small that it requires almost no energy. If your goal is to write a book, the action is not write for 2 hours. The action is open the document and write 1 sentence. That is it, 1 sentence. This is the push that gets the boulder moving. It is so small that inertia cannot resist it. The reward is what you do immediately after the action. The reward must be immediate and satisfying, not a future reward, not I will feel good about myself later. Right now. After you write 1 sentence, you close the document and you give yourself a mental high five. You say to yourself, I am the kind of person who shows up every day. You feel the satisfaction of keeping your commitment. This 3-part sequence: trigger, action, reward creates a habit loop. The trigger cues the action produces the reward reinforces the loop. Over time the loop becomes automatic. It runs without conscious effort. It requires no willpower. It is just what you do at 7 a.m. The genius of the ignition sequence is that once you start you almost never stop at 1 sentence. You write 1 sentence and you think, well, I am already here, I might as well write another, and before you know it you have written for an hour. But the pressure was never to write for an hour. The pressure was to write 1 sentence, and that you can always do. This is how you overcome inertia without burning out. You make the start so easy that it is impossible to fail. You make the commitment so small that it is impossible to break. You make the reward so immediate that your brain learns to crave the behavior. The daily ignition sequence is the heart of the momentum engine. It is what turns starting from a battle into a reflex. It is what ensures that the boulder is always moving, even if it is moving slowly. Chapter 4: The Friction Points. Friction is what slows momentum. Friction is what stops the boulder. If you want to build unstoppable forward motion, you must identify and eliminate every source of friction in your daily life. There are 4 primary friction points that kill momentum. The first friction point is decision fatigue. Every decision you make depletes mental energy. The more decisions you make, the more friction you create for yourself. The momentum engine solves this by making decisions once and automating them forever. You decide what time you will work on your goal. You decide what you will work on. You decide how long you will work. You make these decisions one time, then you never decide them again. You just execute. The second friction point is unclear priorities. When you do not know what is most important, everything feels important. You waste energy on low-value tasks. You spin your wheels on things that do not move you forward. The momentum engine solves this by making priorities crystal clear. Every day you have one primary action that moves the boulder forward. Everything else is secondary. You do the primary action first. You protect it at all costs. You never skip it. This clarity eliminates the friction of wondering what to do next. The third friction point is environmental resistance. Your environment is either supporting your momentum or fighting against it. If your workspace is cluttered, your environment is creating friction. If your phone is constantly buzzing, your environment is creating friction. If the people around you are negative and discouraging, your environment is creating friction. The momentum engine requires you to redesign your environment to support motion. Clean your space. Turn off notifications. Surround yourself with people who are also in motion. Reduce friction everywhere you can. The fourth friction point is emotional resistance. This is the internal friction, the voice that says you are not good enough, the feeling that you are too tired, the fear that you will fail. This is the hardest friction to eliminate because it lives inside you. The momentum engine solves this by making the action so small that emotional resistance cannot stop it. You cannot be too tired to write one sentence. You cannot be too scared to open a document. You cannot be too unworthy to spend 5 minutes on your goal. The small action slips past emotional resistance before it can activate. Eliminate these 4 friction points, and your momentum engine runs smoothly. Keep them in place, and no amount of force will keep you moving for long. Chapter 5: The Identity of Motion. The most powerful force in human behavior is identity. You will always act in alignment with who you believe you are. If you believe you are someone who starts and stops, you will start and stop. If you believe you are someone who struggles to follow through, you will struggle to follow through. If you believe you are someone who is inconsistent, you will be inconsistent. The momentum engine requires you to install a new identity, the identity of motion. You must become someone who moves forward every day, not someone who tries to move forward, not someone who wants to move forward, someone who moves forward. It is not a goal, it is who you are. This identity shift happens through language and action. The language you use when you talk about yourself must change. Stop saying I'm trying to build this business. Say I'm building this business. Stop saying I want to be more consistent. Say I am consistent. Stop saying I hope to make progress. Say I make progress every day. These are not affirmations, they are identity declarations. When you declare an identity, your brain listens. It begins to reorganize your behavior to match the declaration, but the declaration only sticks if you back it up with action. The action is the daily ignition sequence. Every time you execute the sequence, you provide evidence to your brain that you are the identity you declared. You prove that you are someone who moves forward every day. Each day of proof strengthens the identity. Each day of proof weakens the old identity of start-stop. The identity of motion is not built through heroic efforts. It is built through small, consistent actions that never stop. You do not prove you are consistent by working for 10 hours one day. You prove you are consistent by working for 1 hour every day for 100 days. The former creates exhaustion. The latter creates an identity. When your identity becomes I am someone who moves forward every day, the momentum engine becomes self-sustaining. You no longer need to force yourself to start. Starting is automatic because it is who you are. You no longer need to motivate yourself to continue. Continuing is natural because it is who you are. This is the ultimate goal, not to use willpower to move forward, but to become someone who cannot help but move forward because motion is built into their identity. Chapter 6: The Compound Effect of Motion. Momentum is invisible at first. You push the boulder for a week and it has moved an inch. You push it for a month and it has moved a foot. You push it for a year and suddenly it has moved a mile. The distance traveled is not linear, it is exponential. This is the compound effect of motion. The compound effect works because every day of motion builds on the previous day. When you work on your goal today, you are not just making today's progress. You are building on yesterday's progress. You are creating a chain, and chains are powerful. The moment you break the chain, you lose the compound effect. You have to start building again from scratch. This is why missing one day is so destructive, not because of what you lose that day, but because you break the chain. You reset the compound effect to 0. The momentum engine has a simple rule: never miss 2 days in a row. Missing one day happens. Life gets in the way, you get sick, something urgent comes up. Fine, miss 1 day, but never miss 2, because 2 days breaks the chain. 2 days allows the boulder to stop rolling. 2 days forces you to start from a dead stop again. Missing 1 day is a pause, missing 2 days is a reset. Protect the chain at all costs. The compound effect also works on your identity. Every day you execute the ignition sequence, you are not just moving the boulder, you are becoming the person who moves the boulder. The identity compounds, the belief compounds, the confidence compounds, the results compound. This is why small, consistent actions outperform massive, inconsistent actions every single time. The person who works on their goal for 1 hour every day for a year will achieve dramatically more than the person who works for 10 hours one day and then stops for 3 weeks. The first person has compound momentum. The second person has only force, and force always fades. The momentum engine is not about working harder. It is about working consistently. It is about making the action so small that you can do it every day without fail. It is about protecting the chain. It is about trusting the compound effect even when you cannot see it. Because the compound effect is invisible at first, it is working beneath the surface, building, growing, compounding, and then one day you wake up and you cannot believe how far you have come. The boulder that moved an inch a day has traveled miles. The goal that seemed impossible is now inevitable. This is the power of momentum. Not force, not willpower, not motivation, just consistent motion that never stops. Chapter 7: The Momentum Killers. There are specific things that kill momentum. They are not obvious, they are subtle. They disguise themselves as reasonable choices, but they are momentum killers and they must be eliminated. The first momentum killer is the 0 day, a day where you do nothing, not even the small action, not even the one sentence, a day where the boulder stops completely. This is the most destructive thing you can do because it breaks the chain. It resets the compound effect. It forces you to overcome inertia again tomorrow. Never have a 0 day, ever, no exceptions. The second momentum killer is the heroic day, a day where you do way too much. You work for 10 hours. You push yourself to exhaustion. You think you are making massive progress, but you are actually destroying tomorrow's momentum. Because you cannot sustain heroic effort, you will be too tired to act tomorrow. You will need a break. The boulder will stop. Heroic days feel productive, but they are actually destructive. Stay consistent, stay moderate, stay in motion. Third momentum killer is the distraction spiral. You sit down to do your one small action and you think, I will just check my email first. Then you check social media. Then you watch one video. Then you respond to a message. 2 hours later, you have not done the action. The momentum engine requires you to do the action first, before anything else, before you open your phone, before you check your messages, before you do anything that could distract you. Do the action first, protect the momentum. Fourth momentum killer is the perfection trap. You do the action, but you are not satisfied with the quality. You think, this is not good enough, I need to do it better. You spend hours refining and perfecting. You turn a small action into a massive project. Perfectionism is friction. It slows you down. It makes the action feel heavy. The momentum engine values consistency over quality. One sentence every day is better than one perfect paragraph once a week. Done is better than perfect. Motion is better than precision. The fifth momentum killer is the comparison trap. You look at someone else who is further ahead. You think, I will never get there. What is the point? You feel discouraged. You slow down. You stop. Comparison is poison to momentum. Your only competition is your own inertia. Your only measure is whether you moved forward today. Do not compare your day 1 to someone else's day 1000. Compare your today to your yesterday. Are you moving forward? That is the only question that matters. Eliminate these 5 momentum killers and your engine will run smoothly. Keep them in place and no system will save you. Chapter 8: The Unstoppable Life. When the momentum engine is fully installed and running, you become unstoppable. Not because you are perfect. Not because you never fail. Not because you never feel tired or discouraged. You become unstoppable because you have a system that keeps you moving forward regardless of how you feel. You become unstoppable because you have eliminated friction. You have automated decisions. You have protected the chain. You have built the identity of motion. You have learned to start small and stay consistent. You become unstoppable because you understand that the goal is not to feel motivated. The goal is to keep moving. The goal is not to make massive progress today. The goal is to make any progress today. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be in motion. The unstoppable person is not the person who never stops. The unstoppable person is the person who never stays stopped. They might pause, they might rest, but they never let the boulder come to a complete stop. They always give it one more small push. They always keep the chain intact. The unstoppable person does not rely on willpower. They rely on systems. They do not rely on motivation. They rely on momentum. They do not rely on inspiration. they rely on identity. The unstoppable person has bad days, days when they are tired, days when they are discouraged, days when they question everything, but on those days they still execute the ignition sequence, they still write one sentence, they still open the document, they still take the small action, because they know that the small action on a bad day is what separates the unstoppable from the stuck. The unstoppable person does not feel like they are forcing themselves to move forward, they feel like they cannot help but move forward. Motion is their default state, stillness feels unnatural, restlessness is replaced by purposeful forward movement. This is not a fantasy, this is not a personality type you are born with, this is a system you install, and you install it through the daily practice of the momentum engine, through the elimination of friction, through the protection of the chain, through the building of the identity of motion. You can become unstoppable, starting today, starting right now. Make one small decision, take one small action, keep the chain intact, do not break it tomorrow, do not break it the day after, keep it alive, keep it growing, keep it compounding. And 1 year from now you will look back at the stuck person you were today and you will not recognize them, because that person was trying to move through force, and you are moving through momentum. That person was fighting inertia every day, and you are riding inertia like a wave. That person was exhausted from starting and stopping, and you are energized by never stopping. The difference is not talent, the difference is not willpower, the difference is not luck. The difference is the engine. And the engine is now yours. Closing the first push. You have heard everything you need to hear. You understand the physics of momentum. You understand the start-stop cycle and how to break it. You have the daily ignition sequence. You know how to eliminate friction. You understand the identity of motion. You see the compound effect. You know what kills momentum. You know what it means to be unstoppable. Now you need to take the first push. The first push is the hardest because you are fighting inertia from a dead stop. The boulder is not moving, you have to push it, and your mind will resist. It will say start tomorrow. It will say you are not ready. It will say you need more information. It will say you need to plan more. Do not listen, take the first push now. Decide on your one small action. Make it ridiculously small, so small that you cannot fail. Decide on your trigger. Make it automatic and consistent. Decide on your reward. Make it immediate and satisfying. Do it today, not tomorrow, today. Push the boulder 1 inch, then push it 1 inch tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Do not break the chain, not for any reason, not for any excuse. The engine is built one push at a time. The identity is built 1 day at a time. The unstoppable life is built one small action at a time. The first push is on you. Nobody can do it for you, but once you push once, the engine begins to turn. Once the engine turns, it begins to build. Once it builds, it begins to compound. Once it compounds, it becomes unstoppable. Take the first push. The rest will follow.